Welcome to LionHeart Talks, a series of podcasts from LionHeart.
Hello and welcome to LionHeart Talks. This is the next one in our second series, and today we are going to be talking about what to do if you're referred. I'm Melissa Gough-Rundle and I'm Head of Development at LionHeart. And today we are very lucky to be joined by John Tierney. John is one of our wonderful LionHeart ambassadors, and he's joining me today to talk about his journey with his APC exam. So, John, if you'd like to just introduce yourself.
You've said it there, Melissa. My name is John Tierney. I am from a place in East Kilbride near Glasgow in Scotland. And I've sat my APC quite a few times, to say the least. The thing about me is to introduce myself as I am working with Avison Young just now. So they are my current employer. Previously, I worked with Lanarkshire assessors, Lanarkshire and Glasgow assessors for a few years, and I also have had a journey to my APC that's unlike, I suppose, too many others. So hopefully I can discuss that in more detail with yourself, Melissa.
It'd be lovely, John. It would be lovely, and it's lovely to have you here today. And John, you're right. You started to touch on the fact that your journey through the APC process wasn't the easiest. I think those individuals that have had a little look around on our website, checked out what our ambassadors do, might have seen your story. And I certainly suggest that people go over to the website and have a look at your story, because it is quite an amazing one. Your story of just absolute resilience and tenacity is second to none. So I think for me, let's start at the beginning and say, looking back on that time now, which might seem like a distant memory to you, what happened in terms of when you first found out that you hadn't passed your APC?
Well, I think I suppose that the first feeling that I had was sheer disappointment, and it was absolutely gutting, because when I received that email to say that I'd been referred, I then started the usual, what have I done? Where did it go wrong? But not only that, I started to do the full kind of blame culture. So other people were sitting it. I suppose I think I adopted a kind of victim mentality to say, well, surely I could have passed it. Surely I could have done better. I think I was really maybe naive the first time going into sitting it. But that the feeling after being referred the first time it wasn't good. It wasn't nice. And yeah, I felt as though the kind of world was on my shoulders. I felt as if I'd let everybody down. I'd let myself down. And, I was so close. But like everything in life, you have to pick yourself up. And hopefully, hopefully I've done a little bit better from there.
Yeah. And you didn't give up. I mean, did you put yourself literally back on the horse straight away? Did you, once you found out you'd been referred, did you just book your next assessment straight away?
Well, I think the first thought that came into my mind, Melissa, was if I had failed it then, when's the next opportunity? Can it be as soon as I can? And I think maybe that can be a good thing and a bad thing. I think you have to remember that there's a balance between, I suppose, your level of knowledge, how you are feeling as a person, and your approach. I think I was oblivious to my approach, and I think that's where the key lies in all APC journeys. I think is the approach to the APC and how you as a person are feeling. I think that's a real important thing to get right. I don't think it's an exercise where you try it, hope for the best. You study, you cram, and you get through. I've tried it, and it's not the way to do it. Rushing it isn't the way to do it. I think you have to know in yourself that you are capable of doing it, one, and two, when the opportunity arises, take the next opportunity. Obviously have a look at your referral report, see what changes need to be done, and then build yourself up from there. But I think it's just having that tenacity if you are referred to do it again, because you are so close, and I would say that 90% of people feel as though they're already a charter surveyor before they're even, sitting their APC. So that's something I would suggest. But I just knew that I looked at what was needed, and I thought, I am so close. I am so close to passing this APC. I need to figure out a way to pass it properly.
I mean, you've been very open with the fact, John, that you didn't pass it on the second time. You didn't pass it on the third time either. Bless you. You did have a few attempts at it. What do you think changed over the process of you resitting? What happened mentally with you that got you in a better place to finally pass?
What happened was, the way it worked out was that the time scales for me was that you could sit an APC, and then roughly 6 or 7 months down the line you could probably sit another one, and that trend continued, over the course of, I don't know, 3 4 years. And I thought to myself, do you know, I could sit this and I could pass it. And the problem I seen was that when there was other people and colleagues or in other offices and they were passing, I really felt terrible. But I felt as if I was getting lagged behind at the time. But what kind of began to change over the first, second, and third one was the the fact that I'm almost there. I think I kept that in my mind. Like I think that's crucial, because if you don't think you're almost there, then you won't set it. The other thing is, as well, is the fear of sitting it, or the fear of all the work you need to do, I think can put people off. But in my head, I knew that all I had to do was make adjustments and I could get through this. As I say, I could treat it almost like a driving test, Melissa. Sometimes you might drive a car and you might not even know how you drove there. You just get there. You might make some mistakes along the way, but ultimately, are they crucial mistakes? Are they fatal mistakes? Are they, So I kind of thought to myself, treat it like a driving test. Doesn't matter how many times you sit it, you will pass it. So it was more a case of that.
And that's really, I think that's what shines through with you, John, is the fact that you didn't give up. Because I think, looking back at your story, there were occasions when you felt like giving up, I'm sure. What were those feelings like at the time? Did they haunt you a bit in terms of wanting to give up?
I don't think giving up came into my mind. That's the thing. I just felt as though there's always a way, and that just might be a mentality growing up. But I always think, if there's something in front of you, find a way to do it. Adjust your approach, figure out what's going wrong. I'm intrigued about improving myself all the time, but the thing about it is, I felt so nervous during the APC, and that was hard. Like, I think roughly about 40 minutes in, 45 minutes in, I'd always find myself getting so nervous, and the panel would ask me questions, and I would just get so anxious and so uptight, and so I just couldn't answer questions. I ultimately couldn't answer questions because of how uptight I was. But I thought to myself, wait a minute here, maybe there's something, although I've got a bit of tenacity about me, maybe there's something in the way that I feel that could send me on my journey in a better direction. And I think I probably noticed that after the fourth attempt. It took me 4 attempts to get there, but I would maybe encourage people to go if they've been referred once, or even if they're about to sit their APC, if they've got feelings about it. I think there's just an uptightness in relation to it that I would love to be able to turn around and strip away. I'd love to say, you don't have to be nervous about your APC. You don't. Like, nobody's told you to be nervous. Nobody has. It's only the panel that can make you feel that nervousness. If you don't know something, it's not the end of the world. You can know it, and the way that you do know it is going to be your way. And just, I suppose, express that. And I think that the problem that I had was, I always looked at my situation and thought, okay, what can I do better? But the true thing is what can I do for myself? What can I do for my body? What can I do for my approach, in order to facilitate the needs for the APC, or the needs for my life in general? So, when after my fourth attempt, I approached LionHeart, and the story went in the best possible direction.
Yeah, that is really lovely to hear, John, and we'll come on to that, because I know that Lionheart did provide an awful lot of support to you, and I think that got you across the line for the final attempt, and you do acknowledge that, which is absolutely fabulous. And we always want to be here for all of those that are going through a similar situation. But looking back at your time when you were going through the APC, what do you think specifically helped or hindered you in that process? Is there anything specific that comes to mind? You thought, that really was holding me back.
Well, do you know what was holding me back? I think the first time I sat my APC, I'd actually broke my leg about 4 months, 3 or 4 months prior to that. So I actually had to go and sit my APC with a cast on. So I had to hobble in crutches. So, it might have been one of those things that I was feeling sore, and I thought, you know what, I could do it. But I thought if I can do this with a broken leg, I could do it anytime. As it turned out, it never, it never materialised. But what hindered, I think, was comparing myself against others. I think that's a real hindrance. People must remember it's you against you, and nobody else is in this race. There's no competition, and I think the problem is as well is the hype surrounding the APC. I don't like the hype in the sense that when people talk about it, they talk about it as if it's the the hardest thing. It's like Everest, it's like, oh, I've done my APC, and they hold it on a pedestal. I'd love to strip all that away and say it's a process. You are already there. All we have to do is find the adjustments in how you operate as a surveyor, or how you operate as a building surveyor or as a QS, to one, get through it, and two, demonstrate that you are a qualified chartered surveyor, you meet the ethical standards, and you know your stuff to the best of your ability. And I think the problem is that when you get people like me who are uptight or kind of anxious or almost a degree of hypertension, I think you almost know too much and you can't portray that well. That is a hindrance, but also a help to that is that you can then look at it and go, how can I strip myself back to the point where I can demonstrate that I'm a fully qualified chartered surveyor? And the APC, I suppose, the best thing that helped me was having that belief that I had the ability, that I was already there. One of the things I'll say is that in terms of helping is the knowledge that LionHeart's there to help. I think that was a great thing for me. So I think I seen the logos of LionHeart, I seen the things, and I thought, oh great, I can go to them whenever I need help. But I just never, I just decided not to for so long.
What stopped you? Because I was just going to say, you obviously had seen something about LionHeart, but what stopped you initially from reaching out?
I suppose it was maybe I don't know. Sometimes I think there's a stigma when it comes to reaching out. I think people want to, be this person. Oh, I can do it myself. Or I'm able to manage this myself. Or I'm great. I'm going to pass it. There's so much. I suppose ignorance and arrogance to that effect. I think that sometimes you have to admit that you're wrong, and sometimes that little bit of support might put you in a different direction or might change you just a little bit to get you through it. And I would encourage people to find that out before you sit your APC. I think the way that the APC is portrayed is this big thing, and I want to say it's a big thing in terms of achievement, but I think it's in terms of how you break it down and how you are as you're working through it. Is you have to take it in bite size, and you have to take it calmly, and you have to take it as though, I suppose, it's the most relaxing thing on earth. In fact, I suppose we'll move on to this eventually, but the time that I did actually pass, I stopped studying 2 weeks beforehand because of how my approach was and how confident I was and the belief system that I had. And the other thing is as well is that, in the lead up to the time that I actually passed, I actually felt as though, do you know what? I actually know a lot more than what I did, and I actually went on to different competencies, so see different questions. So I kind of analysed the panel and thought some of these guys might come from a building surveying background, some of them might come from like an agency background, some of them might come from different areas and different fields. And I thought, I wonder if I know about taxation or valuation or certain competencies, I wonder if I know about their neck of the woods or their lease renewals, even though it's not a competency. But I thought, do you know what? it's probably an idea to get somebody, who knows their stuff. And I actually approached somebody just as a secondment exercise, just to find out in the most basic possible sense. You get up in the morning, you have your breakfast, you go for your shower, you get your teeth brushed. When you go into work and you sit down physically, what do you do with lease renewals? And I learned certain things, and because of the way I felt previously, if I was really anxious or hypertensioned, I wouldn't be able to have learned this information. But when I eventually spoke to Lionheart and I got all the information that I need, I was like, no, do you know what? This information's great, and I can treat this as as nice information. This information's you shouldn't look at stuff and think, oh, this is really, really hard. You should think, hmm, how does that actually work in real life? How does that work,
Yeah.
in practice? I think that's really key. But what made me came to Lionheart, I think ultimately was the approach, Melissa. I think I knew that I had to change or adapt something in my own personality to get myself through it. And I'm so glad I did, because it's changed my life completely.
It obviously did, John. And of course, here at Lionheart, we're absolutely delighted that you turned to us and that we were able to help you to make that final push and get through it. And it's so nice to hear what you're saying about how talking to Lionheart helped you change your perspective on actually sitting the APC. I mean, it might be worth actually talking about the experience that you had once you'd reached out to Lionheart. What were the key things that you learned and that helped you most?
Well, do you know, Melissa? I actually felt it was almost life changing, and I'm not in that for any matter of means. Mark Hodgson, who is fantastic, is one of the counsellors at Lionheart. When I did approach, even when after the initial consultation, I can't remember who I spoke to, but when I spoke to somebody at the time, they made me feel brilliant, and they made me feel as if, like, we'll get you through your APC. But, I came on the phone. I remember picking up the phone to Lionheart, and I remember saying, I've sat my APC 4 times. Like, I just keep sitting it, and I keep feeling this way. I keep thinking that I'm the problem. I keep thinking that, why always me? Like, what's going on? And they said, look, maybe you need the counselling. And obviously, when I went to the counselling, I think I spoke to Mark, and he made me feel as if all my issues, he almost stayed silent, but he laid it out on the table. I was just speaking away, and we had problems with like our roof. Our roof needed fixed and stuff, and we had different issues. We just moved into a new house, but we had issues with it. So I was kind of all worried, and he was like, "Well, John, think about it. That problem's always there, but I mean, realistically, there's nothing at this present time you can do it. But it is on the cards for you to fix that problem. But maybe you need to have a more generous approach. I think people often see a problem and they think, "Oh no, this is terrible and everything's a disaster." And then you think, well, if you strategize and say, "Well, this is a problem, but you're in a process of fixing it, and that's okay to be there. It's okay to be there indefinitely. It's okay to pick up this problem and break it down and understand that, it'll get better." And I felt as though when I spoke to Mark the first few times, he was going to lift me out of that. And the great thing about it, Melissa, was it was during COVID times, so obviously lockdown was there, and I felt as though, oh, my APC, I can spend a lot of time on it because we're in lockdown and all that. But I thought to myself, maybe it's the opposite effect. Maybe it's something that you have to be strategically calm about and strategically generous to yourself about and kind to yourself. Because if you're not kind to yourself, Melissa, I think this is where the APC goes wrong for a lot of people. A lot of people have this impression because they've been referred. And I'll just say, by the way, I sat and lead up to my APC, probably over the course of the time, I had about maybe 10 or 11 mock interviews, and I'd say I'd only passed maybe one of them, honestly, out of that full time. And I thought to myself, all these things can go against you, but it's about keeps one sticking at it. But I think when you speak to Lionheart, I think it's important to listen and to know that Lionheart is on your side, and to be kind to yourself and know that you are. I got to a point where Mark had listened to me for I don't know how long, maybe 7 or 8 sessions, and I was like, and he got to a point. He said, "John, you really do know your stuff. You really do know your stuff. You're already there. You're already a chartered surveyor. Whether you pass it or not, I'm not bothered. But I appreciate your resilience and how you've came through this, and how you've managed to approach this. And the APC might always be there, but Melissa, I actually felt as though it helped me in my life in general. Different things. I'd look at different problems, and I'd be like, that's not really a problem. That's just something that in a process to solve. It doesn't need to be done right away. It's not as if, we're feeding, or we're sleeping. I suppose feeding and eating, you have to prioritize, but other stuff you can I suppose put in a back burner. But it'll get there eventually. And we did get it all sorted. We got a new roof, and we've got our problems sorted, which is obviously what we wanted. But these feelings will come up in life, and it's how you approach them is so crucial. And yeah, I felt as though Lionheart gave me that support that I needed. It was just support, and it was just, we're always here for you, and I couldn't thank them enough.
It's really lovely to hear that, John. It's lovely to hear how you had the courage and the confidence, first of all, to reach out to Lionheart, which was amazing. And we are really glad that you did that, but also how it helped you not only with going through the APC process, and how it gave you the confidence to make that attempt again, and that final attempt, which you passed, but also how it has actually changed your perspective in a much wider fashion. How you've appreciated that the help you received from Mark, and it's helped you in other areas of your life as well, which is really good to hear. And it's great that now you have that different approach to problems, and
Mm.
when you are feeling anxious about something, you tap in to that help you received from Mark at the time, and how it's really helped you. It's really good to hear, John. Yeah, it's really great that you shared that story. So I think one message that I'm hearing that seems to come out quite a lot during our conversation here is, imagine yourself as a surveyor already. So when you're walking into that room, I actually felt a little bit anxious when you said about, I stopped studying 2 weeks before. That to me seems really weird, because I know probably most people listening will go, do you know what? I was literally night before,
Mm.
maybe even on the morning, I was still kind of checking my knowledge or looking back at notes. So for you to do that is quite
Mm.
amazing. But
Yeah.
it's obviously you were in a place mentally that you knew that you could do that, and you were just focusing on how you were going to come across in the actual
Yeah.
exam.
Do you know, Melissa, there's a funny story to that as well. I remember the fifth attempt. I remember setting myself of the after I spoke to Mark, and all Mark had to say to me was, John, you're already there. You just have to believe that you're there, and irrespective of what happens, I want you to become a Lionheart ambassador, and I'm going to put you forward to be. And for some reason, that gave me a bit of like, do you know what? You believe in me, like you definitely do. But it's funny, like I got to a point where I was like, I've done my studying, I know all my stuff, and what you're trying to do in an APC ultimately is convince people sitting across from you, or people sitting online, that you are already qualified, and you're there, and you just need to portray, your competence. You need to give good answers. You need to give decent answers. But I think people can be harsh with their answers. So I think sometimes, people go in and they answer things, but then they reflect on it and go, "Oh, wait, I wish I answered that differently. I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done that." And I thought to myself, why do we need to do that? Why do we need to go back and say that, this is where we went wrong, this is where we went wrong? Because the questions are always different all the time. So every time I went back, I was like, these questions are always different. And I found it so funny that, when I thought I improved this, for example, my counsellor would say, you need to, like my APC counsellor rather, and supervisor, they would say, oh, you need to improve in this, improve in this. But then the next time I sit in my APC, I'm fabulous at that, but then terrible in other areas. So then they'll say, oh, but you need to improve in this and this. So I thought, this is getting too, it's too hit or miss. You have to, I suppose, go in like a football manager and just have I suppose, a system or a formula that you've already got, a style of play, I'd imagine. And the best one was belief and confidence that you are already there. Another funny story is that 2 weeks before, I said, right, I'm putting the books away, and yeah, I'm just relaxing. I'm going to go play football. I'm going to go out, and the odd time I maybe had a look and said, yeah, like I'd look at the information, but see when I'd look at information, I would treat it with the utmost kindness, and I'd be like, there's a piece on such and such. Ah, right, okay, that's cool. Whereas before, I would have read something and thought, oh my God, I need to know this. I don't understand this. But then you go, hmm, treat it with inquisitiveness. I wonder practically how that applies in my life. And then what I do is, instead of studying, I would phone a guy up, or I'd phone somebody, some expert, and I'd say, see, after you've done that practically in real life, how do you, when you've got your stuff, you've got your trousers on, you're ready to go to work, and you've made your coffee, and you get this in front of you, or you go out and you survey a building, or you go out and you come back to the office, and you're now valuing how you're going about your business, or it's all about practical application. So I thought, in the last 2 weeks, don't study, but understand practical application, and I think that helped me in so many ways. And on that Saturday, I remember Claire saying to me, the Saturday before the Wednesday, she said to me, Why are you not studying like that? You're sitting your APC on Wednesday. Why are you going to play football and relaxing, and and like not looking as if I'm like, Claire, look, we've done this 4 times. We have. There's no sometimes people say that it's strange. It reminded me. I don't know if you've seen it, Melissa, but the film The Shawshank Redemption, and the the scene where Morgan Freeman he applies for parole so many times, and he's Mr. Good Shoes. Oh, he's great. He's going to get parole. I'm going to behave, and then by the end he says, I couldn't care less. Like, do what you want. To be honest, he almost gave up on himself, but he got out at that point, and he kind of think it's a bit strange that, I suppose, I'm not saying don't be careless about it, don't be ignorant to it, but I got to a point where I was like, do you know what? The last 2 or 3 weeks, change the narrative, change the feeling surrounding it. There's no point in going in with the same. And actually, do you know, I thought while I was sitting my APC, I thought strategically the fifth time, do you know, I was answering questions so well that I was like, even I'm impressed. Like, I'm seriously impressed with myself, and I was patting myself in the back. And I literally, I remember closing the laptop down. I didn't have any shoes on at the time. Like, I don't know why. I didn't. I had a shirt on. I had trousers on. I was, I was fine. You could see me on Teams or whatever it was at the time. But I remember thinking, do you know what? I've passed that. No doubt about it. Like, I've passed it. Like, just the way the panel were, just the way that you were feeling. And I think this is the problem, is that this is hard to describe unless you've sat it so many times, is people think that they muck up an APC. I don't think they do. I think it's the approach. If you get the approach right, you aren't going to muck it up. And actually, see, when questions get trickier, some people fumble, some people panic, which I did the first few times. Given that my approach was different, I always had that in my head at all times, that this fifth attempt is going to be different. And I found it so funny that everything was all about the approach, and how relaxed I was.
That's really nice to know that actually you changed tact after the 4 attempts. You realised that it wasn't the knowledge that was the problem; it was the approach, and that was the key to you then eventually passing.
Yeah,
Anyone
yeah.
out there listening that is in a similar position to you, getting ready to start their APC journey, or perhaps they're in it and they might be feeling like they're struggling a little bit, not quite sure how they're feeling about the whole process, when would you suggest that they get in touch with Lionheart, and why?
I would strongly suggest getting in touch with Lionheart at any point you need to. And I think that can differ for everybody. But obviously, it took me 4 attempts before I realised there's a problem here. I would strongly suggest, even if you're going to sit it for the first time or the 1500th time, I don't think it matters. I think there's a point where you have to say, look, I might be different, but I think when people have a big thing coming up, whether it's a big exam or a big feeling, people always get the first panic anxiety, and I'd love to be able to strip that away from everybody. I remember getting it in school, so I remember getting it in exams, I remember getting it in tests, and I remember getting it in presentations, this overwhelming anxiety. You could feel it in my chest, the angst, and I thought, this needs to be stripped away for the good of, like, I suppose, humankind. Why is it we always have to approach things with fight or flight mode? In certain circumstances, maybe not, but it's things are prioritized, but things aren't life or death. The APC is just something you would do on a daily basis. It's not it's nothing to be worried about, and that's the thing. So it can differ for everybody when they come to LionHeart, but I would strongly suggest that if you are going to sit your APC, the first thing I would do is look at LionHeart and look at the services they offer, and keep that in your mind whilst you're doing it. And if you feel the ounce of stress or anxiety, get in touch. Now, I'm sorry, Melissa, you might be getting bombarded with phone calls or emails or faxes. People will fax you, and they'll be turning up at your door saying, I need support. But seriously, get in touch with LionHeart as soon as possible, because the services that they offer, or even the initial consultation or the initial helps, is fantastic. The other day, I won't name any names, but somebody in my own workplace came up and said to me, John, I'm sitting at my EPC, I'm feeling a little bit stressed out. And the first thing I said was, LionHeart. You can't get any more clearer than that. Come to LionHeart. And they said, they had been to LionHeart, and I was like, good. That's the start. I was like, because then your approach, and they actually hadn't sat their APC, so it is for any time in the process. Some people wait, like me, probably too late, but certainly just I'd love to scream it from the rooftops. I'd love to even say, I'd love to say at the top of the APC pack, our big LionHeart logo, to say, call us or get in touch with us, get the approach right, because we'd have droves of surveyors coming through the system if it was just the story of LionHeart.
That is amazing, John, and thank you for referring us as well. That's great. Yeah, we'd love to have people beating the door down, constantly on the phone. So that's really helpful. Thank you. And yeah, it is about making that first call. Have a look on the website. There is lots of resources on there, not just even those that are a little bit nervous about making that phone call and having that conversation with someone on the support team. Have a look around. There's webinars on there. There's lots of written information on there. Also, more importantly, the phone number is on there. So pick up the phone and make that call, because even if you don't think you need us, you might do. And just having that call with the support team might help put you in a better place. Which obviously it did for you, John, which is absolutely fantastic. And we're always delighted that we helped you and that you're able to talk about your experience so openly and offer that support to others. So I think we've covered so much ground today, and it's been an absolute delight to talk to you. And I really do hope that even if this has just helped one individual that's listening, that I think we've done our job today, which is fantastic. So all that remains to say is thanks for your time. Thanks for being an amazing ambassador. Thanks for telling people how brilliant LionHeart is and how much it's helped you. And hopefully we will get to see you again very soon talking about your experience. So that's everything from us today. And thank you for listening. And again, if you want to get any help from LionHeart, please do look on our website and check out the ways that you can get in touch with us. So thanks, John, and goodbye. See you again soon.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks so much for joining us on LionHeart Talks, and we hope you've enjoyed the episode. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform to hear from us again, and don't forget you can find out more about how we're helping surveyors and their families on our website, lionheart.org.uk.